Hey everybody, this is Chris DeFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer from Voga Coffee. The Ground Control Brewer is a revolutionary piece of equipment. It's raising the game on batch brew and really opening up flavors for your coffee that you never thought possible. When I've tasted the results for myself from the Ground Control, I was literally blown away at the kind of flavor profiles that can be pulled out from the coffee using this SCA award-winning technology. And let's be honest, right now, what's in the cup so matters more than ever because it's really the crux of the experience that people have with your coffee as to go kind of rules the day right now in the midst of this COVID crisis. And we want to make sure that we are delivering an amazing experience to our customers. The Ground Control Brewer is really easy to use and easy to train your staff on. And one machine can make a lot more than just batch brew coffee. You can make cold brew, batch lattes, cocoa, tea. It's a very versatile piece of equipment. So if you're looking for something that's efficient, versatile, raises the game on your batch brew coffee, and is also really beautiful to look at, by the way, then I think a great choice would be the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer. Go find out more information about getting this in your store. I highly recommend you reach out to them over at vogacoffee.com. That's VOGA coffee.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Flair Espresso. They are the creators of all manual lever presses that provide cafe quality shots at home for a very reasonable price. Personally speaking, I've always wanted to make espresso at home. My wife always asks me, when are we going to get an espresso machine? And my answer has always been the same. It's been kind of cost prohibitive and they usually take up so much space. But then I got my Flair espresso maker, the Pro 2, and I was absolutely thrilled. Just even what I produced on the first day I tried it, literally it was one of the best espressos ever, just right from my kitchen. It was like magic. I couldn't believe it, but tasting is believing, obviously. So basically, the Flair is a perfect balance of convenience and ritual with an easy-to-use and intuitive design. It's priced very accessibly, and it's portable. You can pack it into its own carrying case, take it on the road with you, make great coffee. Most of the units come with its own carrying case. And so, for listeners to this podcast, Flair is offering 5% discount on your entire order. That's huge. So go to their website, use the code KEYS2THEFLAIR at checkout. Again, use the code KEYS2THEFLAIR at checkout over at flairespresso.com. Just an amazing piece of equipment. So happy with mine. I know you're going to be happy with yours too. Again, that code KEYS2THEFLAIR for 5% off your entire order over at flairespresso.com. Okay, everyone. So today I wanted to talk to you about no news being bad news. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because there's a pattern in coffee bars that I see happening over and over again. And that is that we spend a lot of time in the initial phases of a coffee bar opening about training and maybe not enough time training, but we at least spend time doing it and practicing our drinks. And we're like getting all the chairs in the right place, our drinks in the right place. The most amount of energy we spend on making sure things are just right and knowing the skill level and the out in the quality of the output we have in the cafe is usually in the beginning because we feel like, I don't know if this is going to work. We got to have everything just right. We got to make sure that we make a good showing because there's a lot of money in this and we need to make money because we're going to have to start paying rent really soon. And there's a lot of pressure to make sure things are right. Okay. But then once you open and once customers start loving what you do and you see the numbers become steady, and your baristas become more confident. And, maybe a year passes by and another year, you start to get really comfortable with what is normal on the bar. You become comfortable with the idea that what's happening is good because by all indicators, it seems like customers are still purchasing your lattes. Your baristas aren't complaining. Customers aren't complaining. You don't have any feedback really coming to you. And so the assumption is, well, no news is good news, I guess. And you move on. There's a couple things happening here. One, I think we don't want to hear the news so we don't investigate. No news is good news is something people say when they don't want to risk exposing themselves to the existence of bad news, right? So recognize that maybe we're just trying to deceive ourselves. And two, no news is bad news because you don't have any feedback means you actually don't know what's happening in the minds of your customers, in the minds of your baristas. You don't know actually even the quality of the drinks that the baristas are making, because for most of us, the coffee bar isn't necessarily this place where we're crafting a specialty beverage and just showcasing the hard work and artistry of the supply chain. We have the honor of being the last link in that chain, and all the stuff that you talk about with baristas when they first come on, or it's on the video that you show them or whatever. Every day does not feel like that. It's mostly a drink factory, a milk drink factory. Okay. And that's most coffee bars. And maybe that's a glib way of putting it. Okay. But the fact is that after a long shift, that's kind of how you feel. And the reason why I bring it up is because we don't necessarily lean into investigating the quality of the beverages being put out on our bars as much as we should. We don't investigate the customer experience or the barista experience as much as we should. The question I have for people often is, do you know how any one of your staff makes a mocha? Can you tell me how they make a mocha? Not based on your manual. I mean that person. Do they underfill their drinks? Do they have a habit of that? How would you even know that unless you investigated something like that? Do they have a habit of having too hot cappuccinos? Are they under frothing the milk so that the milk is really thin? And, do customers necessarily complain about these things? There's two scenarios that could be happening. The first one, of course, is that your baristas could just not be doing as good of a job as you want them to be, and they need support from you. Maybe there's something that they need on the bar in terms of a tool or capacity that will allow them to do their job better, without checking in and developing some kind of a normal system to collect feedback and investigate actually what's happening in a customer experience and barista experience and skill levels of the barista. Then you're going to be driving this ship blind. You're not going to know, and not knowing is the death of any business. Not knowing is not the same as trust, by the way. You can trust your baristas, but the whole saying, trust but verify. This is what is needed in business. So if they're not doing as good of a job as you'd like them to, if they're underfilling drinks or making it too hot or too cold or not frothy enough and too much syrup, you name the issue, you've probably dealt with it, then customers may not complain, but they're certainly not going to rave about it. So your sales might be stagnant. Your sales might not be as good as they could be. Now, a customer might leave too without saying a word to you about their experience. And frankly, that's just the way that it usually goes. It's rare that a customer is going to tell you why they stopped going. That's why I always say it's awesome to get complaints just as much as it is awesome to get positive feedback. So you won't know what areas to improve, and you won't know what you're missing out on because you think no news is good news, and you're just letting this thing ride and drive itself. Your coffee bar is not a self-driving car. This isn't Coffee Bar by Elon Musk. This is a stick shift. So that tells you a little bit about how involved I think you need to be. The opposite of all this is true too. Maybe your baristas are really doing an amazing job, and your customers are having an amazing experience at your coffee bar. And what you're risking by not seeing this yourself and not being involved is you don't have any leg to stand on for affirming your baristas. Just as much as the other way around, you don't have the ability to correct and coach people up into a higher level of skill. In this case, you don't have any ability to affirm them in their high level of skill and support them in that because you're not involved. And then those high performers they're going to feel unwanted. They're not going to feel rewarded for their work. And they're going to wonder, why am I knocking myself out every day? If nobody sees what I do, I'm not going to get a raise for it. I'm not going to get an affirmation for it. And then you start to see that your culture starts to stagnate. Okay. So what I would encourage you to do is never think to yourself, no news is good news. Always investigate, always be curious, and set up a system and a schedule for how you do that. Now, if you have like 5 coffee bars and you are the owner, you need to delegate authority in management or trainers, whatever, to make sure that they're the ones investigating on your behalf. So there's this feedback loop. So there isn't just this void of information coming to you. Whenever I'm in a cafe and doing consulting, if I've seen that there hasn't been a staff meeting and there's this void of feedback and people just don't know what's going on in their cafe, it starts to worry me because what are we going to find? It's like we haven't pulled the fridge out in 2 years. Oh boy, let's pull it out and see what we can find in there. Operationally speaking, you're going to find a lot. You're going to find a lot of crap. You're going to find a lot of weird things when you pull that thing back, or you might be surprised. Maybe it's really clean. Who knows? The problem is if you don't know, and so make sure that you are informed so that you can correct and coach. Make sure you're informed so that you can reward and affirm and encourage, and further set up systems for success that help promote that good work. Okay? You need both in the cafe, and no news is good news is always a sign of bad news. So I hope that this episode was helpful for you today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from keys to the shop.